Boogity, 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 boogity. So, there's a camera, apparently, called Soho that forever takes footage of the sun. Now, we know this chap, very nice chap, called Robert Shortman. And he spent 15 months in Antarctica. And I'll get to that in a bit, but he did study before this. He's a bit of maybe, I'm maybe speaking out of turn here, but this is how I see him. Bit of an obsessive type of chap, a bit like myself. Really, I am much like that. Obsessive compulsive disorder. I don't think it's a disorder, but that's what they call it. And he's got literally, well, more than literally, if that's possible, but he's got hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of this Soho camera footage of the sun. Now, because he has a mind like he has, he thought that when he was viewing this, it must be, breathtakingly exciting stuff to watch. But he noticed that, or he thought he'd seen a certain flare or something before. So he kind of he had a computer where he could save the bit that he thought he'd seen, at the readiness. And then he went and he trawled through lots of other footage, and sure enough, he found the bit that he thought he'd seen, and then he played them side by side, and guess what? It's exactly the same. So, lies, lies, and more bloody lies. So, instead of, unless the sun does the same thing, which is, I would say that is impossible. He knows, as we do now, that they just simply loop the footage and play the same shit back to us, thinking that nobody will know, but we do now. So you've been blown, like all the bullshit and the little drama that when you put the Hubble telescope up into space, ooh, we didn't get the lens right. Of course you didn't. So we had to, the brave men had to go up and sort that out, and it cost, they say, as much as the telescope did to build in the first place. Okay. But of course it doesn't matter, because it's all just CGI nonsense. And for them to, well, Andrew Basago, who rang them up and said, when you did that maneuver, he was, I don't know whether he has a PhD, but he was saying he was a PhD student, and he got to talk to some guy who, from NASA, who told him what they did. And so he asked them, when this fella told him that they just pushed it into, with a space shuttle, they pushed it into the correct orbit. And then Andrew said, well, why doesn't it just kept going? Why didn't it just keep going? Why didn't, in the vacuum of space where there is no friction, why didn't this telescope just travel on into the depths of space? Right, yes, that's not nonsense, obviously. And Robert Shortman, who was in Antarctica all that time, can tell you that there is no 24-hour sun. That's it for the ball. That's it. It's no ball. No 24-hour sun. Forget it. Doesn't matter where you are, as long as you're in the Arctic Circle, which he was, the Southern Arctic Circle, obviously, which they said he was. Of course, that doesn't really exist, as we've shown. The one in the north, of course, does. And if you're in the north, in the northern summer, the sun is there 24 hours a day. It never goes below the horizon. And I can't absolutely attest to this as from first-hand knowledge, but I've seen plenty of footage that with no breaks, and of course it is. I used to live very far north, and in the summertime, it didn't actually get dark, even though the sun did drop just below the horizon. It appeared to. That's what it appears to do. It didn't actually get dark. Which is another massive clue, isn't it? Because if it went below the curve of the ball, lights out. But because it didn't, and it doesn't, we could see the glow from it, and it never got dark. It got bloody dark in the winter, though, I tell you. 3 o'clock and it was dark, and it didn't get light until 10 o'clock in the morning. So that was a downer, I tell you. That was with work we had to do, and under false lighting, and anyway. So there's that, and now when they went to the moon, when they pretended to go to the moon, there are so many anomalous points that you can scrutinize, and one of them obviously is maybe not obvious if you haven't thought about it or looked at it, but the lander came down. I think it had 4 legs, and on those legs were concave cups, shallow but concave pads, as it were, and in the center of those pads, on the concave side, that's where the leg was attached. The surface of the moon is very dusty, powdery. Again, this is what we saw on the film set. This is what it appeared to look like. And when they went down, the 1,000-pound thrust, how many 1,000 pounds, I don't know, thrust from the rockets that wouldn't work in a vacuum. Did anybody tell them that? As they were touching down, it blew up a load of dust and debris, and there'd be not just dust, there'd be bigger stones, I would have thought, from the huge engines that you couldn't hear, by the way. You couldn't hear them when they were talking. Yeah, we're not in Houston. We're whatever. Beep. They should have been. And fuck all else. You couldn't hear anybody's voices because of the massive rocket motor. Have you ever been near a jet engine, even when it's anyway? Fucking hell. That alone does it for me. But let me tell you more. So, when they touched down and they got out of the Eagle and they climbed down the ladder, and it was very nicely lit, even though it shouldn't have been. The pads, every one of the concave pads was clean. It didn't have any dust, no debris whatsoever. Bullshit. Another obvious clue that they didn't go, and obvious proof, really. But there's many things that that we never see when we look at the fake station. We never see them going through an airlock. Never. When the fake station is supplied by the rockets that that go up from I think the Russian rockets that and we see them going up, and we can follow them, because I have followed them. You can go on the website and you follow what they do, because look, I was still trying to debunk the flat earth, and I couldn't do it no matter what I did. I could debunk the sphere earth easily, but I couldn't debunk the flat earth and the fact that space is bullshit. I couldn't debunk it. So up they went, and then you don't see that transitional time where they go from the Earth's atmosphere into the vacuum of space. You don't actually see that. And the other thing you don't see, you see them docking, very nice models, but you never see them using an airlock to go through, the double doors thing. You never see them. Never see footage of them, even airlock or not, going from one vessel to another. And you never see that when they go on these spacewalks. Because if I was designing the ISS, the LISS, I would put all the service parts on the outside, so they would have to go outside and do it, wouldn't you? Or would you put them on the inside, where they'd be a little bit easier to get at, maybe? Let me think about that for a minute. No, I'll put them on the outside, because I'm a fucking prick. And oh yeah, I know, it'd be good for ratings, wouldn't it? If people had to go outside and risk their lives, it would be really good television. That we'd get a few interested people, and maybe sell a bit of advertising. And when they're out there, when these people are out there, you can see the divers. You can see them. Now, a lot of people won't be able to see them because they're blind to it. But you can see the divers all around them, making sure they're in the right position, because they're floating about in a tank. It's a fucking huge tank with a blue screen above them, or green screen, or whatever. And you know which way up they are, because every now and again, yes, you've guessed it, there's a bubble. And where do bubbles go in water? Do they go down, sideways? Which way do they go? Oh, they go up, over. So you can tell which orientation they're at, because the bubbles will go up. You still believe? You still believe? You haven't watched enough boring space shit walk bastard footage that I have. Motherfucker, it's boring. But it's very well worth it, because you do then understand what they're doing. Without that, you think, well, would they do that? Yes, they bloody would. And this is how they do it. So there's many more things. I'm going to do another one very shortly, one of these, because 15 minutes isn't long enough. I mean, I could do it for 3 days and I still wouldn't have mentioned everything I know about their fakery. I mean, there is a bit of footage. It's just, you must watch it if you can, of them taking off, and of the crew, 3 of them, I think 3 or 4 of them, in a rocket going. Supposedly in a rocket. Of course, they're not in there. Nobody's in them rockets. Nobody is in them. Anyway, they're all in there. And some guy's reading. He's reading a clipboard. Okay. Mongos.